Hello, Mr. Ducks. I don't know how everything is going to sound. We're going to play a little bit. Hello, everybody. What's up, Gamer? Hello, Jason. Hello, G2G. We will be going over all the questions. Hello, Undot. I forgot your name was Undotter. I love that. Very fitting. I have the lo-fi on pretty low compared to me. But we'll play around with it a little bit once we actually get in live, because I just set up my computer an hour ago. We will get to all your questions, I do promise. I'm happy to have you all here. We're going to go over all the great news that has happened since our absence, because we've had, I was sick for a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then I was traveling to Germany, actually. I visited the Aesir Interactive studio for the very first time, which was very exciting. And then with our team, we went to Gamescom. We had a couple of showings there. We had Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori there with private appointments. We had Ambulance Life, a Paramedic Simulator with private appointments. But then also on the public side, on the consumer side, we had quite a few showings of Police Simulator, Patrol Officers. We had it showing off on the Switch. We had all the new updates to announce. We had the Fortnite prop hunt game mode showing off there. Astragon really put out all the stops for Police Life. What do we got? 50 seconds? We can just switch. I think we can just switch, right, guys? Hello! Now you have two of me on the screen because I paused my introductory message. All right, so we're going to play around a little bit. So I think I'm in the middle now. How does my mic sound, everybody? That is up to him. Undot, would you like to be a moderator, or would you like to just experience the live stream? It's totally up to you. But yes, Undot is a fellow Aesir Interactive colleague. Yeah, there's a lot of newcomers. I'm really excited. I think all the recent news about Ambulance Life kind of revitalized everything. I haven't announced it yet in the Discord, but we are officially over 1,000 members in our Discord, which is crazy. It's not even a year old, and we've only had really one significant release in that time, but we've had some amazing announcements. Yeah, we just hit 1,000, I think, yesterday or this morning. I think it was last night, which is really cool. It's really cool. Okay, so let's start from the beginning since there are a lot of new people here. Hello, my name is Troy. I'm the community director here at Aesir Interactive, and I started at the company about a year ago. And since then, we've been building a tradition of radical transparency as a game development studio. So some of the things that we've been working on are being extremely open about announcements. If there are mistakes or celebrations to be had, we're very open and honest about all of those. We also share as much as we can about the video game industry, video game development, relationships with all of our business partners, and just overall stuff about what's going on. I have not announced it yet, Mr. Ducks. I have not announced it yet. I'm going to be making a post in Discord today just to celebrate everybody here. So another thing that we're building a tradition of is collaborative development. So for us at Aesir, community is incredibly important. Like, we would not be here if our players didn't also love what we did, right? It just makes sense. So based on everything that's going on in the industry as a whole, I think it's very important. It's pivotal for us to build the games that we all want together. So of course, when we have a game idea, it's a vision that we want to bring to life, right? And then we work really hard to find a publisher who also sees that vision the way that we do. We work on whatever the best business relationship is to bring that project to life, and then we bring it to life. Now, sometimes there isn't always a lot of flexibility, and that's just completely situation case by case basis. But for the most part, a great example is Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori. That is going to be one of our most ambitious titles for sure. It is an open world action adventure game where you play a mail courier, a package courier in 13th century Mongolia. And you will be responsible for building your camp, moving the camp, such as nomads do, building up your herd of animals, including the horses that you breed with special traits so that you can continue exploring and accessing different parts of the world you couldn't before, and exploring the vast world of Mongolia. I mean, back in the 13th century, you're talking about like 17 different biomes that all felt completely different. So it's a very ambitious title, but it's something that's very near and dear and close to our hearts. It's something that we've been trying to build up for years with the Windstorm series, as far as 7 years ago now. And we're taking it to the next level. So that's just an example of what we want to be doing in some of our games. And with The Legend of Kimori specifically, we are going to early access early next year. And that is where our community will be able to actually impact the live development of our games. We'll have major updates and playtests regularly, and folks will be able to give us feedback on what's working, what isn't working, what should be in the game, what shouldn't be in the game. And over time, the community will have significant impact on how the game is developed and what that final product at the end is going to look like. And it's something that we're very excited for, because it's the first time we've really been able to dive into that. We've dabbled a little bit with Police Simulator Patrol Officers and with Ambulance Life Paramedic Simulator. We've had the opportunity to work with some incredible experts. So we have medical experts and police experts that helped us bring a lot of the realism of real life scenarios, tools, and situations into the game. Of course, we gamified the game a little bit. It's not truly immersive simulators because we still want a lot of folks to have fun with it, even just core gamers. So we've gamified some of it, but we really wanted to have a lot of those aspects that felt real or that people wouldn't realize is part of that profession into the light. And with Ambulance Life specifically, we have our biggest group of advisors that we've ever had for anything. They were really like our first and most knowledgeable group that we've put together for a specific task. And they are going to be helping us build out what the future of Ambulance Life looks like on launch and then after launch. And we're going to combine that with what the community thinks of the game at launch and start figuring out what our roadmap is going to be for the years to come in the game. So now that's a little bit about me and Aesir Interactive. We've been around for about 11 years now. Is that right, Undot? It was 10 years when I joined, and I've been here for a year. I can't believe it's already been a year that I've been at Aesir. It feels like literally yesterday that I joined. It's really crazy. I promise I'm not ignoring chat. I just want to go through all this introduction for the folks who don't know who we are, and then I'll go through everything that people are talking about, I promise. So for about 11 years, it started off with a small group of friends at uni, at college, and they decided that they wanted to start building stuff together. So they did. And it's been a long journey. Well, we'll definitely get into that another time as well. I would love to have some of the founders on here. At our 10-year party in year 11. Sounds about right. So we are hiring for various jobs at various points of our project lives. I think right now there might be, like, we're always looking for technical artists. That's something that's never really, it's always in high demand. We were at one point looking for a finance manager. We were looking at another community member. We signed them on. There's quite a bit that's going on pretty frequently. If you go to our website, aesirinteractive.com, you will be able to find the careers page and the jobs page through that, and it should be up to date. As long as you can click the link and go into what would be the application, it's live and you could submit. Otherwise, you could also send an email to the HQ email on the website and just kind of give a rundown, like a provisional, what your experience is, what you're looking for, and you never know. So let's start talking about what's been happening. I know that a lot of people are here for Ambulance Life, so I think we're going to work our way backwards because Ambulance Life is probably going to take up most of the stream because that probably has the most stuff that has been announced in the last short weeks. So we're just going to start off pretty quick with Windstorm. So again, for those who don't know, this is the third installment of our Windstorm series. Otherwise, if you're in Europe, you probably might know it as the Ostwind series. And so from there, we've taken everything that we've learned and working with Alias Entertainment to really figure out what the future of the IP could look like. And we put together this really ambitious title called Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori. So this is a short developer diary. It's about 7 minutes long. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the lo-fi because I want you to hear all this stuff. So this is a couple of the folks who are working on the game, including Adriano, who's our community manager. Rupert, one of the producers, and we also have a few other folks in here. So enjoy.
Creating Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori is a completely new experience for us. The project is much bigger and way more ambitious than any of our previous Windstorm games.
Although this is our third Windstorm game, this time we decided to create a game for people with different core interests.
We don't want to make just another horse game.
We want to combine detailed horse gameplay with a thrilling story in an immersive and explorable world.
With lots of cool gameplay features that you don't normally see in games like this.
Expectations from the community in regards to horse riding are really high. But I would even say that our internal bar is set as high or higher.
Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori is an open-world action-adventure game where you play as a young courier rider in 13th century Mongolia.
When making a game in any historical setting, there's always a balance between authenticity and actual gaming enjoyment. We're not making a historically accurate simulator here, and that gives us the freedom to explore more mystical aspects of the culture, as well as embrace the peaceful exploration experience.
With The Legend of Kimori, we want to develop a game for horse lovers, but also for people who like to immerse themselves in an open world to explore the beautiful Mongolian landscape with its various habitats.
Mongolia is vast and features multiple biomes. In those expanses, small settlements would spring up. The pastoral nomads were really always ready to move, so they oftentimes did not live in permanent structures like stone huts. They just took their yurts and moved on to new pastures or milder weather. They didn't really own much, but the things they did have, they took great care of. Surrounding those nomadic settlements is the vastness of Mongolia. The landscape is not only vast, but also really diverse. Ancient dark woods are as naturally occurring as wide sweeping grassy plains. Streams, boulders, mountains, cozy birch groves are all common features of this land, ready to be explored by the players.
As a cargo rider, your horse plays an important role in exploring the vast Mongolian landscape. No matter if snowy mountains or wide grasslands, all cargo needs to be delivered. Train your horses to build and maintain bonds and unleash their full potential. With our breeding system, it will be possible to breed horses over generations in order to utilize their best skills and thus overcome paths that once seemed insurmountable. Before you start a new delivery, you need to create a detailed plan and prepare well for the next mission. At a later stage of the game, you will have to travel further distances to deliver the goods. Therefore, you need to strategically move your camp to new locations to minimize the distances. After successful deliveries and acquiring resources along the way, you can build up your Mongolian camp buildings called gers. One of the most famous traditional Mongolian skills is mounted archery. We used this gameplay feature in the second Windstorm game, and now we bring it back, better than ever before. For example, we are currently designing arrows with different effects, with which you will be able to solve various challenges in the open world.
The creation of the art style for Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori was and continues to be an incredible journey. That handcrafted feeling is the groundwork of what we want to reflect in our art. The very essence of making equipment and then owning it for a lifetime, polishing it, smoothing out the little bumps and bruises, improving it, adding a little scrap of color here and there. Little things like straps of cloth bound around chests and baskets, symbols of local tribes embedded into each village will make everything way more beautiful and alive. On top of it all, the Mongols are renowned horse people. Horses are the lifeblood of the whole society. They carry loads and provisions, they are companions and means of travel, and we want to put as much realism and beauty as we can into those majestic creatures. Luckily, we do have a few equestrians in our company, myself included, and we can get first-hand experience and information from them.
The scope for publishing a game in early access first is very different to a regular release. On one side, we need to focus so much on the playable parts for early access, polishing everything. On the other, we must not lose sight of the full game. The size of the team has also increased. A lot of new colleagues have joined in the last few months, and everyone has cool ideas on how to make the best game possible. Collecting all these wishes and feedback from our team is great, but can be challenging, as we don't want to hold our horses, but also need to keep control of the overall schedule. So sometimes we have to prioritize. Overall, it's wonderful to work with that many talented people who take the project seriously and are truly passionate about it. Because there's a lot more content in the pipeline, and we want to make sure to keep the level of quality throughout the game.
To achieve this goal, we decided very early on that we need to involve our community in our work as soon as possible. We are constantly trying to offer playtests at an early stage, even if the game is still far from being truly playable and has many placeholders in it. But this gives us a chance to get crucial information from the players. It is really important for us to understand what exactly our and communities like Horse Expert want and expect for Windstorm: The Legend of Kimori.
Fans of the franchise are probably wondering, what happened to our former protagonist Mika? She's alive and well, but something seems to have happened to Windstorm. We don't want to reveal too much about her appearance in the game, because that would spoil the story. But she will definitely play a role in Windstorm: The Legend of Kimori.
Working on the outside of this game is incredibly rewarding. We hope that the players will share in this feeling of wonder and excitement while exploring the vast and vivid world of Windstorm.
Come ride with us.
Thank you for watching our developer talk video. I hope you enjoyed it and that we were able to give you some interesting insights into our game. If you haven't seen enough yet, feel free to follow our social media channels and Discord. We share awesome assets and behind the scenes footage there, as well as interesting information like when we start our playtests. So stay tuned and see you soon.
Thanks, Sabina. So, yeah, that is Windstorm. I'm just gonna go ahead and drop the Steam news into the chat here. Inside each of the developer diaries, like this one, for example, that we just watched, has links to all the previous diaries as well. So each one that comes out will have a link to all of them, sort of like chapters. But some of these are so detailed. We have incredible behind the scenes early access work. So this is just one example of in-engine footage or a screenshot with essentially why we build out the hills the way that we do, why there's a forest here, how you would be able to identify a path as a casual player. All these different things we go into: world design, environment design, character design. This is one of my favorite ones. One of the first ones we did was like behind the scenes of all the different costumes, all the concept art, some of which you saw folks were working on inside that developer diary, but even so much as just waypoints or at certain points that players can interact with. The actual cars themselves, which are really in depth. And again, you will be able to customize a lot of this once the game comes out. You'll be able to build out the camp exactly how you see fit. Might not be that important to you guys, but for horse fanatics, getting horse animations right is a very, very particular feat. It's very difficult to do correctly. Any horse fan will tell you that a lot of games don't get it correctly. They recycle assets or animations, and sometimes there's just things are just not quite right. This is a feeding animation that I particularly love. It's very pixelated because it was like 240p that we just exploded out. man. So yeah, that's the Legend of Kimori. So that's what's going on with that. We can hop right into Ambulance Life, since I know that's what a vast majority of folks are here for, since we've been talking quite a bit about it in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to go through chat right now before we get into any of the details here. Okay, I want it to come out already. Ambulance Life, I do too. G2G, I do too. There is not a release date yet. So the game at the state that it's in right now is what we like to call feature complete. So feature complete means everything that we want to be in the game at launch is in there. Right now, it's optimizing the game, it's fixing up balancing, it's finding and squashing those pesky bugs. That's the stage that we're at right now. And then what we do is we pass it off for what's known as certification. That's when every platform looks at the candidate that we've uploaded and they go, okay, I have an issue with this, but this is fine. I have an issue with this, but this is fine. This should be more fleshed out. This isn't ready enough for release. Maybe go back to the drawing board on that. So essentially, all the platforms have to decide and the stars have to align before we know for sure that the game is ready for release. It may look good for us, but having those second, third, and fourth sets of eyes really lets us know that the game is ready or it isn't ready. So once all of those platforms agree, have a consensus that the game is ready to release, that's when we get a release date. So that's why it's been delayed for so long, that you just don't have an announcement for that yet, is because it's at this point it's out of our hands. We just fix up the game like we're told to do, or something that we know that we wanted to fix for a while, and then once we get the okay, then we know, and then we can announce. So not holding anything from you guys. I'm not secretly holding back a release date. Like, I know that it's coming out on this day and I'm just not telling you. We genuinely don't know yet. And it's also a weird time of the year as well, where in December, a lot of studios and companies shut down for a majority of the month just because of the vast number of holidays, especially in Europe, where they take holidays very seriously. So it's a weird time of the year right now where, you know, if it gets pushed to like the end of November, it might have to wait until the beginning of next year because nothing is happening in December. No companies are open. No studios are releasing anything. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen until we know. So that's just what it comes down to. So all we've been saying for a while now is that our goal is to release it by the end of this year. But the stars have to align. So we'll just see. It kind of goes along the same way with the pricing. A lot of people ask about pricing as well, and it's really the same answer. We don't know what's in the game and what's not in the game, and of course that affects what the cost of the game is going to be. If there's a major part of the game that gets taken out, then it's not going to cost as much as it normally would have because that content is now missing. So there's a long discussion, and like I'm way above my pay grade having meetings and discussions about exactly what's going on, but you have age rating takes effect into it. The content that is or not going to be in the game takes a huge piece of it. There's also sometimes different pricing on different platforms just because they all take their own cut, and that can affect what the final profit result is for the publisher and us, the developer. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's really convoluted business talk. No meetings that I'm a part of. It's really not. I write dad jokes for a living and I live stream. That's essentially how I look at it. So when they give me the information, that's when I pass it off to you guys. And if you guys have feedback or information, I pass it off to the devs. That's my role as a community management specialist. That's what I do. I'm just the voice between both parties. And I just release information or digest and ingest information however is needed. Marcel, sup? I know it's very late. I apologize. Gamer, hello. When's it releasing? A Thursday, maybe. Or a Saturday. Or a Friday. Usually Tuesdays. But we'll see. It was awesome to have you here, Undot. I agree. I want to go back to Munich so bad. I loved it. Everything about it. It was very exciting. It was really great to finally get back in Europe after many, many, many years. And it was great to finally put faces and legs to names. Did you know that everybody Aesir has legs? I had no idea. All we ever do is Zoom calls. So it was good to know that everybody can walk around and stand. Handsome bearded man appears. I appreciate that, Toddy. I appreciate it. Loud and clear, Jason. Thank you. I know it's very late, but thank you. Where's the marshmallows of watching you do the challenge? That's not today. We will definitely do something like that, though. I would love to do stupid stuff like that. Big plans, big plans for stupid stuff like that. When will it be released? We covered that just now. Concept art. What cases are the most fun to play and work on, in your opinion? For cases, I'm assuming you're meaning either situations in Police Simulator, or maybe you mean like patients and symptoms in Ambulance Life. So as far as Police Simulator, my favorite are doing the crime scenes. So looking for evidence, cordoning off the area, interviewing witnesses, and then eventually finding the suspect. That's my favorite in Police Simulator. I also do like major accidents because I love making lists and checking things off of lists. So with major accidents and even minor accidents, there's, a specific order that you should do things in that area until you completely clear it as full green. I love that stuff because it's really satisfying to just check off everything on that list. But as far as Ambulance Life, I can't possibly pick a favorite, because the thing about Ambulance Life's callouts is no two callouts will ever feel the same. There's about 17 categories of callouts. So one example is, for example, a homeless person has been injured. That's all the information you get. And you could get that call 3 times in a row. But when you get to the scene, it's a different scene every time. It could be they were stabbed. It could be they were hit and run car accident. It could be that they overdosed on something. You don't know until you get there and actually investigate the situation, which is one of the reasons a very common question is, like in Police Simulator, can you cancel a call out that you receive in Ambulance Life? And the short answer is no. The reason for that is because in real life, you can't just choose not to treat somebody. When you get called, you have to go and you have to figure out how to deal with it. But also, in Police Simulator, you know what a major accident is going to be. You know what a crime scene is going to be. It's a very set pattern that happens with those specific callouts, but there's a lot more callouts than just the, say, 17 that are in Ambulance Life. But the variability of those 17 it feels infinite. There's so many that you never know what you're going to run into. So that's why you can't cancel the callouts in Ambulance Life specifically. So I think that's one of the things that is going to be really exciting about Ambulance Life and gives it a lot of replayability, I think. Some parts of it might feel a little too repeatable. Like, for example, parking tickets in Police Simulator. There's only one way that can go, but it's still an important part of the job, especially if it's, specifically that type of shift that you picked. But there are lots of things in Ambulance Life that we have woven into the game that is going to make it feel fresh and new, even if you're coming off the heels of Police Simulator itself. And we're going to talk a lot more about that as we get closer to showing some of that off. Very exciting stuff. I'll just greet everyone with a Guten Tag. Hello. I guess Guten Abend for vast majority of folks right now. All the horse stuff. Yup. Undot is a technical artist on the team. He's very active in our Discord, by the way. So if you ever seen Undot in big red letters, that's my boy. All right, we're getting caught up here. How many different scenarios would be expected in Ambulance Sim? There you go. I covered that by accident. How do you like that? I read your mind without seeing that yet. Is there going to be a playtest session? So for Ambulance Life, we did have one playtest session. This was like pre-alpha. It was like very unfinished. There were missing textures. NPCs didn't have voice lines yet. Lots of stuff like that. That was really just for an initial, are we even making the right game? That was essentially what that was. It was like a stress test and just a gauge to make sure that the community wanted a game like this. And since then, we've been really hard at work to implement a lot of the feedback from that playtest. That was a while ago. I think that was like February, March. So we've just had our heads down, focusing on the game itself to make sure that we hit all of our deadlines and milestones. I don't foresee a playtest happening anytime soon, just because at this stage, it would probably just end up being a demo or something like that, because there's nothing really to test, if that makes sense. At this stage, where we're really just polishing the game and making sure that it passes all of its certifications and then eventually releases. So I think part of that is there's really not a whole lot of feedback that we can implement into the final game. Whatever's in the game right now is going to be in the game at launch. And then at that stage, if it's something that's after launch, that would probably just be a demo or watching people play it on stream before you could give any relevant feedback, if that makes sense. So the short answer is we don't know, but it's so close to release whenever that's going to be that there's probably nothing that we could implement from your feedback in time for the release. So it's just kind of a we'll see. But I would be surprised if there wasn't some way to play it on launch or before launch that you would be able to get an idea of what the game was like. And we will be starting to ramp up a lot of the gameplay that we're showing. And some of it's going to be small stuff, like just a 15-second clip of driving through one of the districts, or showing how the e-brake drifting system works, or showing off how to intubate a patient in multiple different ways. So a lot of it's going to be really basic stuff, but overall we're hoping it's going to be a deluge of information that you'll be able to really get a good grasp of what to expect when the game comes out. So that's the goal. We're still working on what that social campaign is going to look like, but we have lots of ideas, lots of really cool ideas. When's it coming out? Joke. Do you know how long? No, Gamer, we do not know how long. I think that's Smoker, right? Waves cookies in front of Troy. You can tell me a secret. I promise not to tell Undot. Honestly, Undot will probably find out before I do. In all honesty, he'll probably be the one who has to tell me. Totally honest. In the first impressions video, the vehicle's handling looked and performed very easily. I'm wondering if it'll be made more realistic in the future. So that's a good question, Marcel. There are, as far as I know, at least 3 different types of ambulances in the game. So in the original trailers and cinematics, you saw what is very common European Sprinter van, where it's got like the sleek front that that seamlessly combines with the hood. It's a straight back. And then you've got the American ambulance, which is the big, clunky Ford monster. So those for a fact are both in the game. And the way it's going to work essentially is when, just like in Police Simulator Patrol Officers, you'll pick one specific paramedic out of a collection from the main menu. And once you pick that paramedic, that will be the paramedic whose career you're going to be advancing whenever you perform acts of service in the game. So your progression is going to be based specifically off of how efficient you are, how quick you are, how thorough you are in your treatments, how accurate you are in your diagnoses and treatments. All of these different things are going to factor into every single individual patient you'll be graded, and the amount of experience you'll get will be obviously how better the grade is. The better the grade, the more the experience, and then you advance further in your career's progression. So many things can unlock during the progression. Just like in Police Simulator, you'll have different vehicles you can unlock, different symptoms or callouts that can appear, different combinations of things, new tools, new districts, all sorts of stuff will be unlockable as you progress through the game itself. And it very well may be that you come across a symptom you haven't seen before, but haven't yet unlocked the tool to take care of that symptom. So every decision that you make in Ambulance Life, a Paramedic Simulator, is going to be a combination of critical thinking and time-sensitive decisions, and sometimes making very difficult life or death decisions. There may be situations where you will not be able to save everybody, and you have to make the determination of who lives and who dies. So that's one of the things that I think always keeps the game fresh. Not only do you have such a wide, almost infinite variety of callouts where no 2 calls ever feel the same, but you have that extra added layer of challenge where sometimes the traffic will feel like it's trying to block you, or maybe you have to take a shortcut through an alleyway. Maybe there's a construction site that isn't normally on that road that has been generated there. So it's very San Francisco in how we've built it, because that is the model of San Pelicano in the game. And I can attest that Los Angeles traffic and San Francisco traffic are a nightmare, and they are completely unpredictable. So something to keep in mind. What is your favorite feature in Ambulance Sim? I mean, I'm going to be really cheesy and say that the drifting is really fun. It feels really good, to get sort of back to the previous question about like the car handling, the vehicle handling. Each vehicle is going to handle differently. Some is going to brake faster, some are slower, some are going to accelerate easier, some have better handling than others. It's kind of up to you to feel what feels best for you as a player in your play style, and pick the vehicle that fits best for you. But I think the vehicles run very smoothly as compared to something, back in the day like LA Noire, that was like a nightmare to drive. Watch Dogs, notoriously a nightmare. Grand Theft Auto does a pretty good job at driving. It feels pretty seamless. It responds the way you would expect it to. And I think we really hit that nice balance here. I think the cars feel very, very, very strong. They feel good. But if I had to, I mean, without a cop-out answer of the drifting, I think my favorite feature is probably the infinite feel of all the different callouts, because again, no two callouts will ever feel the same. They're all going to be varied. How you handle each diagnosis will change each scenario. So even if you get two callouts that do end up feeling the same, maybe one has a pre-existing condition that you didn't ask about, and you could injure or kill your patient by accident because you didn't ask if they have, you know, a medication that interacts with morphine in a bad way or a lethal way. So there's there's a lot of variability in every single call out, and that's what I really like about it. I really, really love that. Where did I leave off? Can you tell the devs how long is it going to be? Yeah, I mean, there's no answer. We covered that. We covered that, Gamer. Can you confirm or deny whether an ambulance life for a DLC ambulance sim? I'm an EMT in the ambulance and a hospital. I'm so very excited for this. Oh, I totally mixed two different messages. Can you confirm or deny whether an ambulance life you will have to respond to someone who has taken some sort of drug overdose? Yes. The white powder stuff, as Police Sim puts it. I don't know if it goes into as in depth, but you might get hints. So essentially what you do is, it's known as anamnesis, and it's part of the diagnosis stage of figuring out what's going on with your patient, of the call out, where you have to determine what happens. And sometimes they'll tell you, just like in Police Simulator, sometimes they'll admit that, yeah, I was just in a rush and I didn't see the stop sign. And like, you can take that into a factor of whether or not you can give them a ticket, a fine, or a verbal warning. Similar in here, you might get clues from them themselves, sometimes from witnesses. So one example that we had in the demo that we were playing with the media at Gamescom was there was like an office worker who was just outside of his office building, and he had some sort of a break. He just collapsed and he was sweating. So his coworker made the call, and that's when you get the call out. You show up at the scene and you can ask him. He's like, I just really short of breath. I don't know what's going on. It's like, okay, well, it's a little bit of information, but it's not terribly useful. I can't give you a drug or treat you based on just that alone. So then when we asked the coworker, they had said, oh, he had just gone through a divorce. Okay, that's another clue. Maybe he's having some sort of stress-related attack. And then we look on the ground, and there's a coffee cup that we could scan over, and that tells you that maybe there's some extra caffeine that he wasn't expecting. That, combined with the stress, combined with work, is all turning into a panic attack. And then, like, as you're starting to diagnose and you're starting your treatment, as you get more information, like vitals, like maybe heart rate, your blood alcohol level, his glucose level, all these different things will help inform whether the diagnosis you made originally was correct or not. And then from there, you can pivot your treatment because you've learned new information that's changed, or continue on the treatment that you've already selected because it turns out you were right the first time anyway. So that's just like one example of how a call out went when we were interviewing, when we were having interviews with some of the press at Gamescom. It was something that we didn't know was going to happen. Like every single time we went to a call out, we would tell them, we don't know what you're going to experience right here. So we're going to learn together. And they would be like, oh, okay. Like they expected it to just be a canned event every single time that was always the same thing. And it never was, which was really cool. Hey, Jason, welcome in. Welcome in. Okay, and then Laser asked, if possible, do you know what kind of content will be available for DLC? I don't think we've discussed DLC at all, because at this point we're just focused on getting the game out, and then from there we're going to figure out exactly what the community might want after that. You're an EMT in an ambulance in a hospital, and I'm very excited for this game. Well, honestly, we're very excited to get it into your hands, Laser. Genuinely. Will anything happen in transportation, like the patient going into shock or something and you have to pull over to sort it out? Yes. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that yet, but your job as the paramedic is never to cure everybody, right? Your job is to stabilize a patient long enough to transport them to medical professionals at the nearest hospital. So there are times where you may not be able to stabilize. You can do the best you can, maybe place a bandage, but then you don't have the tools at your disposal to handle what's happening with a patient, and you just got to rush there. And how you get there, the efficiency, the rushing, the bumping around, hitting obstacles, all that goes into the stability factor of your patient as well. But it could absolutely be that they're stable when you leave the scene, but then something happens and they start crashing and you don't know what's going on. And there will be interventions that you can do. You can stop and pull over. You can tell your AI partner what you would like them to do, a couple of things like that. But we'll show examples of that as we get more into the the floodgate opening of all the different gameplay. But yes, it is not all rainbows and sunshine once you leave the scene. Basically just finishing it. The game, yes, we're in the finishing stages. We're in the home stretch right now, which can still be, you know, a couple of months, but we are in the home stretch right now. The vast majority of the work for the game is done, and now it's just making sure that it's optimized, it plays well on many systems, the balancing feels good. All of that is being taken into account right now. Wait, so it's actually drifting? It's actually drifting. You pull the e-brake with the button and you can literally drift around corners. It's so sick. It's so good. That's one of the things, like when Game Riot's video came out, he was talking about that. Almost every single turn that was being taken was the e-brake being pulled. And so one of the top comments on a lot of different videos, not just that one, was like literally like, why does the driving feel so weird? Like it feels arcadey. It's like, well, because the person who recorded that was driving it like it was Need for Speed. That's why. And you have that option if you really want to, but it may affect your efficiency rating and your patient stability. It's all a balance. You have to figure out what makes the most sense. Sometimes you have to do that because they are destabilizing so quickly. You need to just get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. So it may diminish your score, but it still might be the right call because there's nothing else you could have done. And they were just losing blood or losing time no matter what you were going to do. So that was still the most efficient solution. You know what I mean? What type of explosions and accidents are in ambulance life? So the most I can get into that right now is that there are 3 districts, and each district has its own tendency for callouts. So for example, we have almost like a Hollywood Hills type situation. It's like, you know, rich elite. There you'll have lots of parties, which might introduce alcohol or drugs, those types of related callouts. You've got the financial district, which is businessmen, panic attacks, car accidents, issues with homeless people. And then you've also got the industrial district, which is lots of construction sites and warehouses. And there you might see a lot more tendency for on-the-job accidents. Maybe something fell on somebody and it crushed their leg. So there's different tendencies for different districts. And as the player, just like in Patrol Simulator, you can pitch which district you're going to be in for that week, that game week. And then those are the call-outs that you'll get within that district for that week until your shifts are over. And so you can, as the player, you can pick which district. Once they're all unlocked, you can pick which one you want to see more. If you want the more gruesome stuff, you probably want to go to the industrial district because, you know, get lots of like chemical burns and, you know, crushed heads, like things like that. So that's probably as much detail as I can get into that without showing more. Can't wait for it. Definitely looking forward to the game. We are very much looking forward to get it into your hands. I promise, FEG. I promise. Seeing the complete game design of a patient was incredible to see. So complex. It really is wild. Like if you look at the behind the scenes, like the Unreal Engine behind what like a specific call out could be, it's like crazy. It's like spaghetti, string theory, black holes. It's wild. Totaling the ambulance, 1000% possible. It is 1000% possible. Just like it is in Police Simulator, you could crash your ambulance or your patrol car where your shift ends. Especially if you have civilians in the back that are arrested. That's not a good look, officer. It's too much fun not to do. It really is. Honestly, I mean, Undot knows more about drifting than anybody in our games because he is one of the folks that brought horse drifting to life in Horse Tales. And that is probably one of my favorite features in any horse game that has ever existed. It can't exist in real life because if a horse breaks its leg, like that's the end of its life. It's a very fragile creature. But in Horse Tales, super satisfying. Oh yeah, we have drifting horses in Horse Tales. There you go. Exactly right, Undot. Thank you. Let's see what else we got. I'm still catching up on chat. I'm from a few minutes ago. Can't wait for it. Yes. So excited. What are some unique challenges that may prevent care? So I talked a little bit about that already, where you might have like pre-existing conditions that you don't know about. And so you might give a medication or perform an intervention, and now that's interacting with the thing you didn't know about. Sometimes you can find out about it beforehand by being thorough in your investigation. Sometimes you can't. So you have to be prepared to react to the treatment that you just gave. But there's also traffic to take into account. There's needs for shortcuts, there's construction sites, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is going to try to stop you from being as efficient as possible, and you will just have to make those decisions on the fly and be quick on your feet, or in this case behind the wheel. Jason Harvey, I said hello already. What happened in the last 40 minutes? So the first 40 minutes was really talking about just us overall. So myself and Aesir as a studio. We talked a little bit about Windstorm, The Legend of Kimori. And then since then, we've been talking about Ambulance Life, a Paramedic Simulator. Next, we will be talking about Police Simulator, Patrol Officers. So many new faces. It's true. There's a ton of new faces. Do you know if there will be multiplayer or split screen for console? So as Undad already mentioned, this is specifically a single player experience. And we did that on purpose. There's a couple of reasons behind it. One, we don't know how well multiplayer would translate into a game like this, but it also probably would have added like another year of development onto it. And it was really important for us to get it out when we wanted to release it. So what we chose to do is to forego multiplayer in this particular instance and see what the community feels like when it comes out. I don't foresee a major decision like that happening lightly. So it would have to, the game would have to be a smashing success for our publisher to agree, yes, here's X number of dollars to now develop for 2 more years to bring that to life. It may be more beneficial and more efficient to instead just make the game more robust as a continued single player experience, whether or not that's like Twitch integration or adding new districts or adding new major events or new tools, new ambulances, new traffic, all this new stuff that could be added to the game instead of adding multiplayer. Because I feel, I'm not a game dev, so I can't say for sure, but to me it feels like a one or the other type of a thing. So it's going to really heavily a lot on what the community is looking for. But there's just no promises. We have no idea what the future holds. Like I said, we haven't even talked about DLC in this game yet. Realistically, it's like, what is the game? Is the game going to be received well? And that's just going to have to be translated straight from sales. So wish lists convert into sales. So the more wish lists you get, the more sales we get. The more sales we get, the more we can do with the game, if that makes sense. I mean, it's really just simple basic math at that point. If the game does really, really well, then we can do more with the game overall. But it was built specifically for single player in mind. And I think about it a little bit too, just like as I'm talking about it, think about this, right? So as you're the player who's driving the ambulance, right? I'm the player who is treating in the back. That would be an incredibly boring experience for you as just being a driver. And of course you could alternate, right? But you're just going from point A to point B while I'm having all the fun in the back, doing all the treatments and possibly killing the patient without your supervision. I think that wouldn't be very fun for all players. And that's a really important factor that we take into for all of our games, is making sure that everything feels engaging and that you never feel like you're being talked down to or that you're not being engaged and something just isn't fun. So it would take a lot of reworking to figure out how multiplayer would even work in a game like this. So again, that's enough about that, because it's really just me speculating. I don't have those answers. I'm not in those meetings. It's not that they don't involve me in stuff like that, because really that's not my job. My job is to just market the game and be your voice, It would be cool if Troy was in Ambulance Life. So funny story, I am not in Ambulance Life. However, there are lots of Easter eggs inside the game. In fact, there's probably going to be a contest about who can find specific things in the games and then maybe give away some stuff based on that. I'm not going to talk too much about it yet, but there are pieces of our developers on the game inside the game itself. And there's also some really notable buildings that we wanted to put inside the game. So as we get closer to release, we will talk about that, or maybe after release. Can the AI partner drive and you stay in the back with the patient? So no, the game's not designed that way. Basically, we designed it sort of like what I was talking about before about keeping the game engaging for all players. You as the player perform about 97% of all procedures in the game. So you are the one driving to the scene. You are the one investigating what's going on with the patient. You are the one creating the diagnosis plan and then the treatment plan. You're the one who's performing that treatment. And then you're the one who's transporting all of you to the nearest hospital. So we did that on purpose because One, I think the AI would be funky if we were just letting the car drive, but also it's a very important factor in your grading when it comes to your progression system. So it's really important how you drive, how efficiently you transport, how bumpy the ride was, how quickly or slowly you got to the hospital. All that is taken into account as you, the player, for your character's progression career, if that makes sense. So that's the main reason why, really, is because we wanted you to do everything. Your AI partner is really just there to sort of give you moral support, and then every once in a while ask you to intervene with something specific. That's the majority of it. They ride in the back while you are driving. There's someone with the patient at all times. We actually have former EMTs on the team. Correct. So when the game first started developing, Unda, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years ago? Was it 2021 that we started development on this game? Or was it 2020? I think it was 2021. But anyway, at that time, we had 2 EMTs who were on the development team. So going from Police Simulator and the very surprising success, like we knew the game was going to be a lot of fun and was going to be well received, but we didn't expect Police Simulator to blow up the way that it did, where it's still being played by thousands of people and still being purchased years later, like 4, almost 5 years later at this point. So we knew that we wanted to take that model that we built, but we wanted to go even bigger with Ambulance Life. And we didn't know that it was going to be ambulance at first, but it seemed like a very natural progression. We had 2 EMTs on the team. We knew that this was a topic that really wasn't handled well. It looked like most first responder medical response games were either about the transporting or about the treatment, not usually both. And if they were, they weren't very in depth. So we took the idea of the call out system and just exploded it, and built out what we thought was going to be a game that just made sense for the genre and for the topic, but on Unreal 5. So we took everything that we learned from patrol officers, and then the Ambulance Life team just took it to the next level. So it just seemed like a natural progression. And so having those folks on the team really helped. Having our medical experts were like, hey, what do your uniforms look like? What are all your vehicles suited with? What is this procedure look like? And they were able to give us super detailed feedback that we were able to interpret and put into the game. And not all of it's going to make it there at launch, but it gives us a great start of what a roadmap is going to look like on launch and after launch. So we're super excited to be able to have the possibility of those volunteers continuing to bring us just amazing insight, really cool stuff. Really gruesome stuff too. I mean, that's another like not really an Easter egg, but like just a fun anecdote. Obviously, the EMTs who worked on the team didn't have a problem working on wounds and looking at different symptoms and things like that. But for people who are unfamiliar, like our art team, they had to develop very powerfully strong stomachs because there's a lot of the stuff that's in the game is hyper realistic to the point where like that's going to up the rating alone. And so it's an interesting story for sure. And the logo does symbol some things I like. It's really awesome how art adds Easter eggs like that. That's true. That's very true. I want Troy to be an NPC or playable character in the game. Playable character, I'm definitely not. I'm not that big of a deal. NPC would be fun. It's just metahumans though. I don't know if I'm ready to have my face just added to AI for free. We'll see. I plan on buying it day one. I appreciate it. Can Troy be in the game? No, I don't know. Would be interesting to add additional features such as grabbing a snack. You know, Ross, we thought about that actually. We thought about the challenges of like having to have a quick bite in between patient calls, having to refill your bus, having to refill supplies, like you only had X number of bandages. And once you had a couple of patients, maybe you had to go refill that. It took away a lot of the engagement from the game. It was a cool idea, and it was something that we toyed with for a while. But in the end, the devs decided that it took away from some of the core gameplay loop, and it just wasn't as fun. It felt more like a chore and less of a fun challenge. So stuff like that we took out. If we can ever find a way to rework that into the game, maybe you could see something like that. But again, I'm just speculating. I don't have answers on stuff like that. It's certainly not a decision I would make. Like I said, I just write dad jokes for a living. That's about the most of what I do. In that case, I'm giving each and every patient ketamine, or they're going to get the defibrillator full on stand clear, charging 180. I mean, Bastille, you can do that. You could literally just give them like ketamine 17 times if you really wanted to. It will not end well, but it is a possibility. Every tool has a very specific use inside the game, and they affect different symptoms in different ways. But we gave the players the agency to make the wrong decisions, whether or not they knew it was the wrong decision or if they just made a mistake. And I think that's one of the things that adds to the fun challenge of the game, is there is like a Bible inside the game that tells you this is what this symptom is. Like, this is a burn. This is a 1st degree burn. These are all the symptoms that can present with that. They might not all present, but there might be a combination from these symptoms in this list here. These are different things you can do to treat that burn or those symptoms. And so on the simulation mode, where all the guardrails are removed and there's no hints, there's no tips, there's no tool tips, there's no highlighting, you're just let out on your own. That guide is going to be invaluable for those players. It might be that you're a paramedic or a medical professional already, and you just kind of want to do that anyway. And then you can tell us how accurate we got it. I think we're covered up on that part. Paramedics, not technicians. Sorry for the confusion. Yes, they were paramedics. PSPO is one of the best police games on the market right now. We appreciate that. And we know it's not perfect. We know it has issues, but part of that, you have to keep in mind that like Aesir 5 years ago was like 27 people. Now we're over 100. And of course, like, it's different pockets of people working on different games, but like, we built the most ambitious game at the time that we knew how to build. And we did not expect it to blow up the way that it did. And early access lasted longer than we wanted it to. And when it came out, the game was still broken. It's still broken even today. And we know that. And we're always working to make sure that the game, it becomes more fixed and more efficient over time. But at some point, there's only so much you can do with the original code that you built without building a whole new version of it on a new engine, which is like, that's like a 2-year process. If you're just transporting PSPO from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5, like, you wouldn't get a single patch for several years while that was happening. Nobody wants that. They'd rather just complain about the bugs they have right now. If it's game breaking, we do our best to address it, and just sprinkle in some new content every once in a while that just keeps the game fresh while we're constantly trying to make it better. So like, we are humbled by the amount of people that still play Police Simulator. I don't even like simulation games, and I'm obsessed with PSPO. Like, even more so with Ambulance. Like, they're so much fun, even as like somebody who normally plays competitive shooters or like MMOs or RPGs like Baldur's Gate. Like, I am still sucked into both of these games heavily, like hundreds of hours on my Steam Deck, hundreds of hours. And it humbles us truly to know that people are still enjoying the game. I mean, PSPO has an 80% rating on Steam still, a positive rating of 80% or sometimes more. Fluctuates between like 79 and 81%. Like, that's crazy. It's like tens of thousands of reviews, and they overwhelmingly love the game. And it's just so cool to see. And it's one of our games that is always being streamed. You can always find somebody playing it on Twitch or on YouTube. And it's just, some people get so into it, they go like full GTA RP on it, and they're like pretending to be officers and like doing 10 calls. And it's really cool to see. We really hope that the community latches onto Ambulance Life the way they have for PSPO. Although the fantasy of being an officer is usually a bigger group, I think, than people who fantasize about being paramedics or EMTs. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's just like my bias showing through, but I feel like police, just the amount of police games that exist, vastly outnumbers ambulance or medical response. When is launch? So we did cover that. We don't have an answer for it yet. It's out of our hands right now. Realistically, looking at just what our platform partners say, if it's ready to go, they'll give us a date. That simple. Can you talk about what excites you the most about Ambulance Sim? I mean, honestly, if I had to be like really basic about it, it's just getting it into your hands. I can't wait to see streamers playing Ambulance Life. I'm very content brained, obviously. I mean, I was a full-time streamer for 4 years, and I'm very natural when I'm on here. But I think that a lot of creators are incredibly creative when it comes to utilizing specific games, even single player games. I mean, you're looking at people like playing Elden Ring using mind control helmets. Like, people are nuts on Twitch and on YouTube. So I can't wait to see what people do with this live on stream. I can't wait to start clipping content and posting it on our socials. I'm really excited to just get it into your hands and see what you guys all do with it. I really am. That's probably like, that's the most thing. Getting the game out into your hands is the most exciting thing I can possibly imagine for this game, because I really can't wait to see what you all think. Full freedom. Yes, full player agency, Unda. That's right. Some ambulances are in fire departments. Are we sometimes in the fire departments for our shifts? So you don't enter buildings in ambulance life, just because that brought in like a whole extra mess of detail and possible errors that could go wrong. So we just stuck to outside scenarios, with the exception of very few scenarios that we'll get into later down the road, not today. But there's no like breaks. It's not exactly like Police Simulator, where you start off at your desk and then leave the precinct, because in the precinct you can do things. You can talk to people, you can bring people to the holding cells. There's nothing like that at the like the paramedic base headquarters. So instead you just spawn outside the building, and your ambulances that are available are there, and you just pick one up and go to your call. Can we get called out to smaller calls, like someone has fallen and broken their leg or something? Yeah, absolutely. Most of the time it's like, a man has been involved in an accident, or someone has been involved in an accident, and you don't know what it is until you get there. Sometimes it's like an electrical burn, or it's smoke inhalation, or it's a panic attack. It could be any number of things. And you just never know until you actually get there. Getting PSPO on Steam Deck was awesome work. Honestly, it plays so smoothly on Steam Deck. That's like the majority of where I play it. It's just so chill to be able to just sit in bed or in my chase and just relax and just catch criminals and write tickets. I write a lot of tickets. I'd recently been working on some 3D renderings for a medical mattress company, and ever since then, I've been intrigued by the medical field. So I'm happy I'll hopefully learn a little whilst playing this game when it's out. I think you're going to learn a lot. And of course, we're never going to say that it's like a training simulator where like this is 100% medical advice. Don't do stuff in the game to real people in real life unless you are actually medically trained. But I think that you will be pleasantly surprised at how much you'll learn. Maybe even just small things about how some medications can interact with others, what a good blood pressure actually means, what blood sugar levels can mean to a person. Like all these very basic things, I think are just really important things that an average person should know. Like everyone should know how to perform a Heimlich maneuver and CPR. You know what I mean? So this is obviously a little farther beyond that, but I still think that it's really important information, and it's really nice to be able to see people excited about learning about that stuff. It's really great. I'm into shooter guns. Why can't we actually use our handgun? So I presume you're talking about Police Simulator. And there's a couple of reasons for that, actually. That was done on purpose. That was a design choice from Aesir and Astragon. We agreed that the guns would not be used in any sort of violent way inside the game. And part of that is, their age rating. We wanted to keep it rated T for teen, at least in America, Peggy 12 or whatever it is in Europe. But there's also the implications of what policing means in many different countries. In America, for example, it's a very hot button issue. Police officers, right? Some people think they have too much power. They have too much autonomy. They abuse their power. Some people love the police here. So it varies. And we wanted to make sure that players were always empowered to do the right thing. So the firearm in Police Simulator Patrol Officers is specifically one of many tools that's known as the use of force continuum. And it's like almost like a circle where you can dip out of the circle at any point and go back and go lower and go higher and go lower and higher. That's like the pinnacle. You're using your firearm is like the last resort that you use to stop a threat. There are no threats in patrol officers, and we did that on purpose. There is no situation that you are put in as an officer inside Police Simulator in which a gun is the appropriate response. The most that you'll be able to do is use it as an intimidation tool to stop a suspect from fleeing or pulling them out of a vehicle without having to get into your car and pull them over with a blip and all that. So those are the two main uses for the gun. Otherwise, you've got the taser for actually taking action on something like that, which again is significantly less lethal than using a firearm. But also it's the age rating, and it also follows our core values at Aesir as well. We've always prided our simulation games on being like the anti-GTA. We are GTA when you get bored of committing crimes in GTA and actually start using your blinker and stopping at red lights and stopping at stop signs and waiting for traffic for the right of way, stopping for pedestrians in a crosswalk. Like when you get bored with GTA, that's what you do. That's what our game is. And it sounds silly to say that like our game is what you do when you're bored, but for people who are looking for that professional experience in that field, that's what we wanted our game to be. We wanted people to always be empowered to do the right thing and always de-escalate a situation whenever possible. That's what we want, because there's a lot of politics involved with policing right now. You know what I mean? And we wanted to make sure that players were doing the right thing. If you want to have some violence and shootouts, GTA is there for you. There's other law enforcement simulators that do offer violence and shootouts and robberies. It's just not what we had in mind for police simulator, so it's not something that we'll be adding in the game at any point. Not my project, but sure interesting to watch those challenges tackled. It was really interesting. Here, a police officer gets suspended after using a gun. Kind of makes sense in that regard. It's typically the case in America too. Like while the investigation is happening, they lose their badge and their gun, and then they get it back if it was like a good shoot or a rightful shooting. Heimlich maneuver is a really good one to learn. That's when somebody gets something stuck in their throat. There's a specific method you can do to pull up and down in a jerking motion against their stomach and their sternum, and it helps dislodge anything that they're choking on. It's a very important thing you should learn. I think everyone should know CPR. Everyone should know the Heimlich maneuver for sure. I think if a cop shot someone, there would be bad consequences. Yes. Somebody is not going home that day if a cop shoots in most cases. But yes, it's the same in the States. I mean, it's impossible to like generalize whether like most shoots are good or not. You presume that they're all good shoots, but every department handles it differently, and there's just so many departments in America. You've got like, even in one city, sometimes you can have two different departments in one city sometimes. So they all handle things differently. Will we get called to any mental health calls? And just there, you mentioned following traffic rules and stuff for PSPO. Will we be able to use indicator in ambulance life? So I don't think that there's an indicator right now. I'm trying to think back to the controls when I was playing it at the most recent build. The only controls I remember were forward, braking and reverse, drifting, and lights and siren, I think. Those are at least the very basic controls. I can't remember if blinkers are included or turn signals are included. I don't see why they wouldn't be, but I honestly can't remember because I don't think about it. Because I play on the casual mode. Like, I'm running over pedestrians without penalty. I'm slamming off of buildings. I do not play the simulator mode because I would not last more than 5 minutes. It's just a fact. Anybody who's watched me play Police Simulator on stream knows what I do to the patrol vehicles in that game. Like, by the time a shift is over, like a 45-minute shift, that vehicle is gone. Like, it is, we have to repair it, or otherwise we're going to get fired before we end our shift. It's bad. So I never play the simulation modes for that reason alone. But in PSPO, you are penalized for not using a blinker. You're penalized for getting into accidents. You're penalized for not doing things the right way. And it's small, but they add up over time, like -2 points here, -3 points there. Where there'll be street racing in police and ambulance life? That's a good question. I don't think so. But again, like, the world is our oyster, and I have no idea what the future holds. If it's something that you want in Police Simulator or NACON or Ambulance Life, then you should contact each of the publishers and let them know that it's something you want. For example, Astragon is basically who makes all the creative decisions for Police Simulator. And essentially we agree on those decisions, and then we figure out how we're going to implement them or change them or update them. But like any major changes that are made inside Police Simulator, Astragon picks what those things are. So if it's something that you're really passionate about, you should definitely write to them in their email, so their support help desk, but also through their Discord, through Astragon's Discord. That's the best way to get heard, honestly. We forward as much as we can to them, but not everything makes it through. And sometimes they have more information than we do. So we're just kind of adding to some noise and making them confused. So it's honestly best if you go directly to the source with Astragon. We're a little more open with Ambulance Life. We haven't quite figured out what the feedback collection is going to look like on the game yet. But Nacon is, another great partner that we're really blessed to work a lot with. Troy's a drunk paramedic in Ambulance Life. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna kill people. I'm telling you right now, Ambulance Life is going to be disastrous for a lot of our streams, and I'm kind of excited for that. I'm gonna be honest. I'm pretty excited for the content that we get to make out of that game. One really cool thing is Nacon has given us permission to play Ambulance Life early. We don't know when yet, but let's say it's coming out next week. I would be able to play it today, kind of a thing. So like you'd be able to get like a first-hand experience live, answering questions, seeing what the game plays like with me on this stream live. So we don't know when it's going to happen yet, but that will be happening. Once we actually have a date, then we'll know when that stream can take place. Yeah, not sure about blinkers, but rescue lane. Yep. As you use your lights and sirens in the ambulance, the AI traffic will do their best to move out of the way most of the time. If anyone has ever been to Los Angeles, you know that that's not usually a thing. Sometimes there is nowhere to go. And you, as the paramedic driver, have to be creative in how you get around that obstacle or maybe take a different route entirely. Does Astragon know the release date? They do not work on or on Ambulance Life. Astragon specifically is only the publisher for Police Simulator Patrol Officers. Nacon is our publisher for Ambulance Life, a Paramedic Simulator. Microids is our publisher for Horsetails, Emerald Valley Ranch. And Mindscape are our awesome partners for all of the Windstorm games. So those are each of our series essentially are different publishers. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. That's going more into the industry talk. There's different reasons why they want that. Like, for example, maybe Nacon didn't have an ambulance game and it's something that really resonated with them. They're like, we have a firefighter game, but we really want to have an ambulance game. And then we came to them and they said, yes, we'll do that. But it's also sometimes about timing. Sometimes it's timing the market. This is a thing that's really hot right now. So it's whoever wants to say yes first. Sometimes it takes a lot of shopping around. Sometimes, with all the studios closing and a lot of the layoffs happening in studios, sometimes publishers are more hesitant to spend money on a game that they're not sure about. So it's all just different. But most of the time they pick a studio who's making a game that resonates with them in some way. That's usually what it comes down to, is it's like, this is something that us as a publisher doesn't have in the catalog already. This is something that we saw really great success with before, but we've moved on from that developer. Maybe we can do this one bigger and better. So like, there's all different reasons why a publisher will say yes to a specific game. But that's the reason why we have different publishers for different series, because those publishers said yes to that particular series or game. That's just how it is. And we have great partnerships with all of them. Can you accidentally inject yourself? Like, that'd be fun, holding a patient's arm and you miss. So no, you can't accidentally inject yourself, although that is a real life risk where you could accidentally stick yourself, but not in our game. In our game, it's lots of like, not cutscenes, but like pre-rendered scenes. So for example, when you're injecting, you have to first place a venous entry. And that's essentially like, it's a little capsule that enters into whatever vein you pick, and then it's a hole that sits there. So anytime you want to inject something, you use that entry that you created. Adding the entry is like a mini game, goes up and down the arm, and you have to hit at the right moment to hit the vein. So it's like a little meta game within the game, kind of like the CPR mini game within Police Simulator. It's like that. It's like a mini game within the game. So once you place that, it automatically cuts to the scene of the venous entry going in. And then from there, anytime you want to inject, you just automatically select that part of the arm and it'll inject through that device. So it's not like you actually physically moving it or anything like that, or like the patient hitting your hand and messing you up. One of the really cool things that I'm really excited about that we haven't really talked about in public too much is the MetaHumans engine we used on Unreal Engine 5. that combination is like mind-blowing. Like, it's so cool. Going from Police Simulator to that is like a totally different generation of game. It's like going from PS3 to PS4. It's like a huge leap because MetaHumans has advanced so much that, I mean, even just looking at, if you look at this page, these are just randomly created characters. These are not even like NPCs inside the game. We made these MetaHuman faces on the fly and just created 10 of them. That's an actual paramedic from the game, that one. That's a paramedic from the game. But like, these are all just random NPCs that I don't even think are in the game. We made these specifically for these Pelicano stories, and they look so real. In game, they have realistic facial expressions. So they have like, so for example, you're pulling up to a call out, right? And you're like, okay, this person fell down. We don't know any more details. But if you're looking at them, not only are you investigating them through anamnesis to see if like there's, you know, any blood on any of the shorts, or there's an environmental hazard that's taken into effect, any of that stuff. Simply looking at your patient can often inform a lot about what's going on. Maybe they're holding their face or their eye. Maybe they're holding their arm. They haven't said anything's wrong with their arm, but clearly they're nursing it for a reason. Sometimes they're holding their leg up when they're laying flat on the ground. There's lots of context clues you can get just by looking at this non-playable character that can inform your diagnosis and ultimately your treatment. It's really cool stuff. Like, you're seeing them wincing in pain. You're watching the sweat start to soak their clothes out of nowhere. As they're bleeding, it's actually soaking the clothes in a pattern. It's like really in-depth, cool stuff. And we can't wait to start getting into all that stuff too, so you can see what I mean. But it's really cool. It's really cool. We had one instance, we were during our Gamescom interviews, where one of the media outlets was talking to somebody who was having a panic attack. And while we were treating them in the back of the ambulance, they had their shirt off because they were doing lots of respiratory breathing exercises and treatments. But while we were looking at the character, beads of sweat started showing up all over their skin. And then we saw that their temperature was rising, so we decreased the temperature inside the van to help offset that temperature rise. And it was just really cool to see that happening in real time, where you could actually see the beads of sweat starting to form and then glisten on their body. It was really wild. That was like one of the number one things that all these media outlets and press were saying when we finished watching the demo, or playing the demo with them. They were surprised at how in-depth the game was. And that's probably informed by all the previous response games they'd played before that didn't go into as much depth. And so I think that's one of the things that we did really well. Finding that balance between like fun and engaging gameplay, but also having medical realism and adding as much detail as these platforms will let us have. Like, you know, PS5 and Xbox or Series are only so powerful, so we had to pull back a little bit. We couldn't do everything we wanted to do, but we did everything that we could, and I think it translated really well. I just want to say that I'm a paramedic who can't find a job yet. I appreciate your game. Thank you. Kent, I really appreciate you stopping by. I'm sorry that you're having a hard time finding a job. It's really hard for a lot of people out there, but everything that paramedics and EMTs do is important. You guys are the lifeblood of society, like really, truly. I think them and nurses are like the most important people you have right now in any medical setting. So I appreciate it. We really hope that you end up enjoying this game when it comes out, because I think there's something for everybody. Yeah, MetaHumans is awesome. Yeah, seeing the blood system evolve is precious. It was like crazy. It's like, yeah, watching blood staining clothing while you're talking to them or while you're treating them is just like, okay, that's urgent. I should probably take care of that. And if you don't, then there's obviously consequences to that. It's just really cool stuff. It's really cool stuff. Yes, Smoker, I did swear alive, but it was censored, so it's okay. Okay, I think we covered all the questions you guys had for Ambulance Life for now, right? So I think we can move on to Police Simulator. So first, I'm going to go ahead and throw this. This is all the news for police, for Ambulance Life right now. So as things come out, we're adding things constantly. The most recent one was talking about, it was just the gameplay reveal trailer, which we're gonna watch it really quick. We're not gonna watch the Game Riot one. Actually, we might. It's only 5 minutes long, right?
Gunshots were reported close to a local bar. There are reports of the victim losing a lot of blood.
Received loud and clear. We arrived on site. Okay, let's have a look. One of the patients seems to be having trouble breathing. Let's put him in the ambulance.
So that's an example. You could see him literally like jerking, like he's uncontrollably doing something. He's convulsing in some way. Even if it's a hiccup or if it's hard time breathing, like he's doing something.
Having trouble breathing. Let's put him in the ambulance. I'll check his vitals. Temperature is low. I'll try to stabilize him so we can take
He's
him
got
to
a
the hospital.
hematoma. See, there's the mini game right there. So this is when you're actually placing the intravenous entry.
Dispatch, this is ambulance 152.
My man's not
Code
looking good.
3.
My
We're on our
man's
way to
looking
San
pretty
Pelicano
pretty
Hospital
ragged.
with a 35-year-old male patient. Please advise the emergency department of our rapid transport status. Over.
Dispatch to ambulance 152. Received a report of a major incident, possible highway bridge collapse causing traffic accidents. Over.
Now, this is what's known as a catastrophic event. This is what one of our articles mentioned because I said it in passing that it's like Michael Bay explosion type events. Something catastrophic has happened in the city or in the outskirts of the city, and you are the first one to respond. This is an instance where we did pull back on the realism a little bit to give players a more fun and engaging experience. Normally, a paramedic or an EMT would never run into a running building. They would wait for firefighters to do their jobs, pull out patients or victims, and then paramedics would treat them from there. That's where we decided to have a little bit more fun with it and let you be the person who's running inside the burning building. So a catastrophic event is essentially, it's a different type of call out that you would select from the list. This is like really fun. Like this is really cool stuff. So the very first stage is you respond to the call. The second stage is what we're seeing right here, which is the triage stage. And this is where you will be responsible for finding as many potential patients as possible. Some have already passed away. Some are simply scared and not injured. Some are lightly injured. Some are critically injured. And you have to essentially tag all these different potential patients with a severity of how they need to be treated. And then from there, once your timer runs out, then a makeshift hospital is set up where all the patients that you've tagged to be treated are now here in their own separate gurneys, and you have to treat them all. And how you treat them, which order you treat them, and which ones you treat first can drastically affect the treatment of all the others. For example, you might have somebody who is 30 seconds away from death, but you can save them. But if you take the extra time to stabilize that person enough for transport, maybe 2 other people pass away. You never know because every situation is going to be different. So you will have to make those difficult decisions sometimes about who lives and who dies. And that's part of the challenge as the player.
Right now. I'm going to defibrillate. Charging to 150 joules. Everybody, clear!
There you go. So it's a very short. I mean, that's like what, 65 seconds long, 69 seconds long. Nice. And the thing about that is just like, let me do this game riot. This is like the long way of finding it. I love Game Riot. His stuff's really funny. But even though it was only like 69 seconds long and it had a lot of existing cinematics or trailers we've already seen before, there was lots of detail in there in just a short amount of time. And that's the stuff we're going to be expanding on. Once it's shown in a trailer like that, we're going to start going nuts with all the stuff that we've already seen and going into more detail with it. So yeah, we might. It's only like 5 minutes long. We'll go ahead and watch Game Riot's video.
A Paramedic Simulator. So I've been looking forward to this game for a considerable amount of time, because the team that worked on this game also worked on Police Simulator.
Sure did.
Patrol Officers. I love that game. So they had a couple of ex-paramedics on their dev team, and it just felt like a sort of natural progression to then move on to something like this.
And this is the Sprinter ambulance that you would see very commonly in Europe.
And here we are.
But it's the American
I
Sirens.
believe the city is meant to be based on San Francisco, hence all the hills. My first outing went pretty wrong.
Yeah.
So I went in.
He slammed into a pedestrian within 30 seconds.
Ambulance. We had an emergency call, so I put the sirens on. Bam! Straight into a pedestrian.
Yep.
Day done.
Yep.
Over. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. What I'm really impressed by this game though is how in depth it can be. You can turn off all the assists as well, by the way. And it can almost be like a realistic simulator.
Love that drift.
I'm probably going to play with a lot of the sort of guidance stuff on it first. But yeah, we're about to enter our first emergency call. It's 3, is it 5th? No. What time is it? Is that the time? That's not the time. I'm going to ignore that. Our first patient. First we quiz them. So we've got general age.
You got it, Mr. Ducks. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be done after this.
Do you feel hungry? Is there any cuts?
And one of them blew up.
Can you breathe okay? Stuff like that. What happened in the general scenario?
Yeah, if you go back, like as you get more advanced in your career, you'll be able to ask more questions. But realistically, it's what happened. Like that's gonna be the first question you'll be able to ask every single patient during the anamnesis stage. And it's just if they can tell you more information, great. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes they'll lie to you. So this is, as we get more advanced in your career, you're able to start asking more questions. And sometimes there are specific situations or scenarios where you get an extra bonus 1 or 2 questions that might give you more information than normal. So, you know, how can we be of assistance? Can you tell me what happened? Has this ever happened before? Do you take any medications that I should be aware of? All these things can help inform your diagnosis and ultimately your treatment plan.
Put in the general scenario.
Thank God that this batch is one of the more harmless ones.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so the chemicals aren't too bad. Look at that wound, though. That is brutal.
Gnarly.
I'm hoping that's just a bit of blood, not the actual like skin. Like,
Yeah,
gone.
he's missing skin,
like
game right. I hate to tell you. That's a burn.
There's some bleeding there. This is like a quick sort of germ.
So you can see she's like kicking her legs. She's uncontrollably jerking her legs. So clearly there's something going on.
Of the body. She's obviously in pain.
Wincing in pain actively.
So each shift is going to be completely different. Your shift will be different from mine. The patient's name.
So you had 2 patients there and he chose one of the 2 to treat and transport. The theoretical idea is that another transport is coming to pick up the other person. You essentially would pick whichever one you want. Most players, I imagine, are probably going to take the more complicated one because that's just more fun to do overall.
Race, age, size, all going to be completely different, which is quite kind of cool. So the patient is now officially in the ambulance. So let's unclothe them and let's work out what is going on. There is a streamer mode. So that will keep the underwear on. So yeah, but you can turn it off. I did quite well at this, by the way.
He did actually.
I believe this is a bandage.
It is a bandage.
I might be wrong.
I think he got this first try actually.
It's like a nice flow. It's not too hard. It's not too hard. But again, you're under a time limit, particularly if it's a serious patient that needs urgent care. Reminder though, you are a paramedic. Your job is to try and get the patient from A to B in a safe manner. Keep them stable. Your job is not to save them.
We're back to normal.
Okay, we're good.
She's holding her chest or her throat, so probably having trouble breathing of some kind.
Even stuff like the ambulance temperature, you have to like turn it up or down based on what the patient might need. And you see the vitals also got the heart rate in the top right-hand corner, I think.
Is dropping. Let's warm them up.
So that's the AI partner on the classic mode, giving you a little bit of hint, saying like, "Hey, their temperature's dropping. We can take care of that. Let's do that," kind of a thing.
They're both red. So temperature's not too bad.
Her temperature's plummeting.
A little bit. So we're monitoring the basic vitals. Uh-oh. Oh boy. What are we about to do here? Oh, perfect. I do wonder what happens if you do screw it up. Oh, God. Oh. I don't like injections.
He doesn't like needles.
So here we got like a sort of general guide. This is the sort of...
So this is it's known as the patient protocol. It's like an iPad that has essentially the patient's chart. So as you discover things, whether it's checking vitals, in the process of treatment, or just simply asking questions or scanning the environment, you start getting a list of all the key evidence and symptoms that this patient is experiencing. And then at the very top, you can see category. The classic mode will give you hints, guardrails about what the possible main core issue is happening here. So in this instance, neuropsychiatric was the #1 with like 11 points. It's like all these symptoms have like a formula. When combined, it looks like neuropsychiatric was the most likely cause of what's happening to this patient. She has a couple of burns, but really she's like super stressed out or having a panic attack because of what happened. Similar to like how you'll see fentanyl happens a lot, where like cops will be investigating like the trunk of a car and they think that they touched fentanyl and they start having a panic attack and they start falling. They think they're having an overdose, but it can't be absorbed through the skin. So it's all in their head. Even though they think it's an overdose, their body is like psychosomatically telling them you're overdosing, even though that they're not. And it's probably a very similar situation that's going on here. So then once you pick a specific category of what it is that's going wrong, you then go to an interim diagnosis. And the reason it's interim is because that can change based on new information or treatment. So you would pick what you think is the best diagnosis, and then all these yellow exclamation marks, depending on which diagnosis you pick, it will tell you how many of those symptoms that diagnosis is covering. And in this instance, there is not one single diagnosis that will cover all those problems. So you want to find the best one that suits the best to stabilize your patient, treat it, and then get them to the hospital as soon as possible.
Guidance.
So that you can see here. So extreme stress is very unlikely. It's so unlikely that it's actually a negative chance that that's what's happening here. It's more than likely she's having severe muscle cramps. And that's an 11. So like panic attack and seizure are possible, but extremely slight chance. It's very likely a muscle cramping, which tells me also that it's probably not neuropsychiatric, but it still could be because your mind has a lot of control over your body. It's kind of scary sometimes. You can create cuts that don't exist there without cutting yourself. It's really crazy. So you would select muscle cramping, and when you do,
gameplay, you can turn this completely off.
now it shows you which symptoms that covers. It covers shivering and it covers tense muscles. And the key evidence was their tense muscle. That's like the most important thing to take care of right now. So that covers that diagnosis. Yes, this guidance, if you switch to simulation mode, this is gone. You have to just learn what all these symptoms could mean and all the possible diagnoses based on the symptoms that you're presented with. And that's what the like the in-game guide, what I call the Bible, is what you're going to be using to get all that information.
So very severe muscle cramping is what we're...
And these are the things that you've already done, but then these are things that you can still do. You can give her a saline solution, which will help relax the muscles a bit.
Diagnosing right now. Even if you want to get like the blood pressure, for example, and one arm is completely cut open, obviously you can't get the blood pressure from that arm, so you got to try and work out, oh, maybe I can use another limb, or it's going to get
there
really
you go. There's
interesting in
saline.
this game. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, the detail is very impressive. So she's stable. So she's in the back. You can see her.
And you can see, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but your AI partner is right there in the middle, and then the patient's in the actual gurney itself.
We're going to go to the hospital as soon as possible. As long as she arrives, hopefully in one piece. Looks like there's maybe the temperature.
Yeah, her temperature's plummeting.
Well.
But again, there's not always time to do everything for everybody.
It keeps going. Maybe it's gradually going down. So again, you can even change the air temperature within the ambulance. You can try. We're driving a little bit erratically.
I love that
other
drift.
Ambulances in the game as well. So to represent, for like example, the UK, different American ambulances, and they all handle differently. And you can do drifts if you want. I was maybe drifting with a patient in the
yes,
rear
there is,
of
Gamer.
my,
Yes, there is.
Yeah. What am I trying to say? Ambulance.
It's a little more in depth because there's not really a whole lot of pictures needed with Police Simulator. Like you don't need to know what like an ID looks like. You know what a driver's license looks like. In this game, the handbook actually has like pictures of burns, chemical burns, fire burns, smoke inhalation, hematomas, like all these different things that you'll experience in the game, so that you can start learning what each symptom or what each issue actually looks like.
There we go. Got there in the end. I was like, what is it? What are we using? Ambulance. But yeah, really looking forward to the game. It looks super in depth. I can't wait to play it. I'll be playing it day one, and really hopefully getting into it. And yeah, there's skills and stuff as well. The more advanced you get, the more serious the patient can be. Was that the same vehicle 6 times?
If you're ever in San Francisco or LA, you'll see like the Amazon Prime delivery trucks. There's like 14 of them on one street. Like that's a thing.
Yeah, this is not the final gameplay, but hopefully it comes out before the end of the year. I think it's coming out on all the platforms, which is pretty exciting. I think Police Simulator came out on PC first, and then
to specify, it's going to be a global release, the same day, the same time as everywhere. and it's going to be a simultaneous platform release on Steam, Xbox Series S and X, and PlayStation 5. That's what Ambulance Life is coming to.
PS5.
No Switch this time
thanks for
around.
watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. If you guys got any questions, let me know in the comments. But yeah, keep this game.
Hi,
on your
Cassiopeia.
radar. It's looking good.
And this is the grading system. So based on how they arrived at the scene, how efficient they were, the questions they asked, the anamnesis and investigation stage, their diagnosis and treatment, and transport to the hospital were all taken into account for these particular patients. I believe it was Aesir Lombardi that was that last patient we just had. And so for that one, we got a B. But this is like your call out results. So Henry Silva was the patient they did not take with them. Aesir Lombardi is the patient that they did transport and decided to treat. When there are two patients at one particular scene, there's sometimes very basic first aid that you can administer, maybe using a neck brace or bandaging a wound or stopping bleeding. But the real treatment happens in the back of the bus. And so you'll pick one of the 2 or 3 patients to take with you. And that one, you'll do the whole gamut of treatments that you have at your disposal with the tools that you've unlocked so far. So yeah, there you go. Switch doesn't support all those shiny new UE5 features for sure. Yeah. I have no idea what the Switch 2 is going to look like. If it's backwards compatible, if it's more powerful. Nintendo does have a tendency not to go really hardcore with their hardware, though, because they realize that it's just not worth it anymore. They do very well with the games that they release for the systems that they make. So I have no idea if this will be a Switch 2 release eventually. There's no way we can know that until we actually get our hands on it and play around with it. I really will be going back and forth from the handbook to the game because I don't know anything about EMT works. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's going to be the majority of people who play this game do not have any sort of a professional medical background. You might know basics, like, ketamine might raise your heart rate. But like, besides that, there's not a whole lot that we expect a lot of people to know, which is why we have on the classic mode, we have those guardrails and those tips in place. And then we have the game guide you can pull up anytime you want, the click of a button, to be able to go through all the different symptoms and tools and what they do and what they don't do. So that's exactly why it's in the game, for that exact reason. And then once you become much more familiar with everything, maybe you dip your toes into the simulation mode and see how well you do without those guardrails. Who knows? Yeah, Cassiopeia, please ask away. Sorry, I ramble a lot. Alps is all Unreal 5, using all the newest shiny. A struggle, but cool stuff, for sure. It's a very noticeable difference, jumping from Police Simulator into this, even just like playing the games, just making sure that I'm staying up to date with everything. It's like 1000%. It feels like a whole new generation of a game. It's really beautiful. Really in-depth, really expansive. San Pellicano really feels like a living, breathing city. Brighton did to an extent, depending on the district. I really specifically loved the the downtown district, the Brick Jungle. That feels very much like home in Boston. It was very familiar sidewalks to me. But yeah, there's a lot about San Pellicano that feels like a San Francisco type city. The traffic alone feels incredible. May you share some infos about other cars and people, like they try to move out of the way before we crash into them, or is it more or less a normal situation that cars and people walk away short before you hit them? If you're talking about ambulance life, I can definitely talk about that. So just like in real life, ambulances have sirens and lights, and although it is law that people have to move out of the way, move over laws, pull over laws, emergency vehicle laws, all those, not everyone can do it, because sometimes you're in a place where you cannot move, and sometimes people just won't do it because they're terrible human beings. So that does happen in the game, and there's lots of different obstacles like that you have to navigate as the player when you're transporting a patient who potentially might be unstable, and you're just trying to get them to the nearest hospital as quickly and efficiently as possible. You'll have traffic that'll get in your way. You'll have people crossing crosswalks. You'll have construction sites that move around and aren't always in the same place. You'll have roadblocks, traffic jams. We did open up quite a bit of the city to allow you the flexibility to be a little creative with how you navigate some of those obstacles. So for example, maybe there's a hill that you can drive over, or there's an alley you can cut through, or maybe you're just going to drive on the sidewalk and just avoid the traffic altogether. You have the agency to do that as the player, but not every decision will be the right decision. Sometimes that will affect your score, like we're looking at the end here. Sometimes it will affect the stability of your patient in the back. You might have stabilized them, but maybe you bouncing around and hitting telephone poles and trying to dodge civilians and crosswalks, maybe all of that makes them a little less stable, and that will also affect your scoring and your patient's health. So there's a lot to take into account. Tough fines on the Autobahn here these days. People learning to do it. Yeah, good. That's how it should be. Transporting patients is a very important job. Our first responders have to be able to get to the scene. It was really cool to see the Autobahn where people were voluntarily leaving a lane open. Like they were driving halfway between the fast lane, the passing lane, and the breakdown lane, so that in between the second lane and the fast lane, there was an avenue, so that if emergency personnel needed it, they just literally had a straightway the whole way. That was really cool to see. And it's something that America does not do. That's what like our breakdown lanes are kind of designed for, but it's not always the case. People in rush hour traffic will use those when they're not supposed to, and then that just creates one extra lane of traffic that shouldn't be existing. And so when a first responder does come through, it causes issues. And there's very few breaks in the median where they can get to the other side and maybe drive against the traffic to get to where they wanted to go in the first place. So yeah, it's definitely not a perfect system in real life, and that reflects very well in the game, I think. That's also in Police Simulator, and that's driving me insane. Yeah. The amount of people that I slam into because they stopped short. Yup, I feel that in my soul. Elevation was quite a challenge to make work. Love that we got it. Of course, our setting demanded it. Yeah. I mean, San Francisco is very hilly, very insane for sure. If there's a jam, you have to form that lane. Yeah, that's good. I like that. America should adopt that. Oh, honestly, guys, I think that's it. What I am going to do is I'm going to drop off the news for Police Simulator. Realistically, it's this patch is the most recent patch, and then there's a hotfix. I don't have the details, like the bullet points for the hotfix, but all this is going to be dumped into the Discord today or tomorrow, so that you'll have what all the new stuff is happening is. I love this graphic, by the way, all the different vehicle skins. It's a great graphic. It's really good. But yeah, mostly it's just fixes. We fixed some CP loss problems. We fixed some issues with multiplayer. We fixed some non-playable vehicle issues. Yeah, some small cosmetic things here. And some of the sounds for collision. Really just like fixes. There wasn't a whole lot of content. We did add, Astragon did add these to the game. So this is like the ultimate fleet pack is like all 8 vehicles so far, all 9 skins, 2 uniforms. And then there is rumors that there is another vehicle on the way, which is very exciting. As soon as we get details about that, Astragon will be sending it out to the world. So yeah, I think that covers it. For Aesir, oh, no worries. I'll stay and answer. No worries. I'm just dropping off all these links so that we can talk. We can talk and talk and talk. So our main channel here for Aesir Interactive has playlists for each of our individual games. So Windstorm, Star of a Great Friendship, and Unexpected Arrival. Actually, let me refresh this because I changed that to Legend of Kimori. There it is. Horsetails, Ambulance Life, Police Simulator. So anything that's related. So for example, if we go to Ambulance Life, we hop in here and the playlist has everything that we have done for Ambulance Life so far. So it's the gameplay reveal trailer, our developer diaries, our all these different really cool things that we've added, including the Gamescom stuff. So that's just one example.
My name is Troy. And
that's me. I'm Troy. If we go to Legend of Kimori, that has like, you know, any of the streams that we've talked about it in, or any of the reveal trailers, all that stuff. So as we have streams from our individual games, they'll get thrown in there. There's also a whole VOD playlist of just live stream events. So you can go back and watch this one, for example. I'll probably upload it tomorrow morning is my guess. It takes a while to download it and re-encode it. But yeah, that'll be live. So anything that you missed from this talk, you'll be able to go and watch tomorrow on Twitch and on YouTube. YouTube is going to be better quality. I definitely recommend watching it there because you have like the automatic captions and all that stuff too. I have it on Twitch just for people who enjoy watching it on Twitch, or like, you know, Chromecast it to their TV, whatever have you. Bradley, what is the progression in regards to missions and vehicles from beginning to all unlocked? So presuming that you are talking about ambulance life, it is very similar to Police Simulator. So you will have a character that you pick, that is your paramedic, and they have just started their career as a paramedic. They're brand new to the scene. So you start off with very few symptoms available and very few tools to deal with those symptoms. But as you progress, you earn experience on how well you treated each call out. So how quickly and efficiently you responded, how correct or in-depth your anamnesis or diagnosis was, how accurate and efficient your treatment plan was, and then how efficiently you got them to the hospital. All of that is taken into account, in which you get a grade, which you can actually see here. This is the grade. Pull down the banner one more time. So here you can see the grades of what was happening. So finding the patient, treating the patient, admitting the patient. There was only one that was admitted because you only have room for one in your van. How difficult it was. They got a bonus because it was a difficult patient. And then they get a rating. The best rating you can have is S. A's and B's are very easy to get. C's and D's still get degrees. But essentially you get experience based on how well your score is for each individual call out, and that'll indicate how quickly you progress in your character's career. And then as you progress, you'll unlock all sorts of things. You'll unlock new tools, new possible symptoms, new possible treatment interventions, new diagnoses tools. All these different things will vehicles, districts, all these different stuff will unlock as you progress. And eventually, just like Police Simulator, once you unlock everything, you'll be able to do like super long shifts that spans all the districts you have available, that spans every possible combination of symptom you can ever get. And we did mention it before, but the call out system is going to be very unique in comparison to something like Police Simulator. In Police Simulator, when you get a call for a major accident or even a minor accident, you know what to expect. It's going to be 3 or 4 vehicles. There's going to be maybe somebody who's drunk. You're going to have to take a picture. You're going to have to interview everybody. You're going to have to give all the witnesses their accident reports. You have to tow vehicles that are not drivable. There's a set expectation or task list that you go through for all those callouts. In ambulance life, you never know what you're going to get. So there may be only 17 core callouts, but every one of those callouts is going to feel differently. The example that I love to give is you may get a call out that a homeless person was injured. It's all the information you get. That's the 911 call. So when you arrive on the scene, you could have that call out 3 times in a row. It'll be different every single time. So you're going to have one instance where maybe they overdosed, one instance where they were mugged, one instance where it was a car accident, like a hit and run. So all of these can change at any time. You never know what your call out is going to be until you actually get there and do the investigation into what it is that you can expect. So expect the unexpected is probably the best way to describe any call out that you receive in ambulance life. The close-up ticking talk was a grand visual. I think Nacon did that. It makes sense. Yeah. I really want people in the games to respect the sirens and the navigation, because it's messing me up on detection to go to destination. Yeah. I mean, sometimes in real life they panic and they like drive into you. That happens in real life. People are crazy. People do weird things when they're nervous or scared. But it can definitely be worked on. And if that's something in Police Simulator that's really upsetting you, Smoker, you got to let Astragon know, because they're the ones who are going to get it fixed. So just let them know in their Discord, on their socials, in their support help desk. Let them know that that's a problem so that they can add it to the repertoire, because the more people that talk about the same problem, the more prevalent that problem is, and the easier it is to gather the information they need to find a fix for it. And obviously the bigger impact that fix would have, because it's affecting more people. Whereas if it's a one-off issue about one person crashing, it could just be an issue with their computer. Astragon can't fix that. So until they get all the information that they have, they can't really make a determination about what to fix or how to fix it. So definitely let them know if there's an issue with the game. That's the best advice I can give. Eventually our games are probably going to have bug reporters built into them, which will make it easy for you to submit stuff that'll go straight to our devs. But for now, that's the most efficient method, is to go usually directly to our publishers and let them, organize and handle it on their side. Cassiopeia, what was your question? Will you be able to develop and also do the work of an emergency doctor, or you will remain a paramedic? So you will remain a paramedic in this particular instance. Similar to Police Simulator, where you would not be able to like go up the ranks to become a chief or anything like that. So for the time being, we have designed the game so that you are a paramedic the whole way through. What the future holds in 4 years, we have no idea, but that all depends on the success of the game. So wish list, tell everybody about it, and buy the game when it comes out. As soon as we have a date, we can tell you when that is. Is there a game tracker on ambulance like how Domino's Pizza has? No, because there's no end result. The best thing for you to do is just follow our Discord. As soon as we have any relevant information, we'll blast it out like I did for this stream. We'll ping everybody who is following Ambulance Life channels, and you'll be notified. Or like Troy passed out while on live stream. No, I've never gotten that tired before. My secret superpower is that I am always the same amount of tired all the time, no matter what. So it's a blessing and a curse because I never get jet lagged. I never feel more tired than I am. How I am right now, Undot can probably tell you this is exactly how I am in real life. I talk the same, I walk the same, I act the same. It's like I don't like put on a facade for streams. I don't have like a streamer personality. Like this is just who I am in real life. I'm just a natural born entertainer, I guess. Definitely gonna wishlist it. I appreciate that, FEG. I really appreciate that. Cassiopeia, you're very welcome. Will we get single crew paramedics in cars as well as the buses? That's a good question. I don't know if that's ever been discussed. I don't know if it's I don't know if the devs have had that discussion before. Do you mean like, for example, you have like fire response and a fire engine, but then you have the chief shows up in his own separate vehicle? Is that what you mean, Bradley? We're just happily nerdy with each other. It's true. Yeah, it was so great to hang out with you, Dot. Can't wait for another one again too. And will like hospitals have their own specialty like tumors, neurology? So actually we thought about that too, Bradley. That's a really good question. We thought about having like, you know, this hospital is specifically a burn specialty, or this one is specifically oncology for cancer patients. We decided against it, similar to having to refuel and refill your supplies on the ambulance. It took away from a lot of the engaging gameplay. And although it was a challenge, or maybe you would get more points for bringing a burn victim to specifically a burn unit, it just didn't really make sense in the long scheme of things. The way we wanted the core loop to play out was you got a call out, you investigated the call out, you treat them, you transport them, you get right back on the road. Like that's how we envisioned it, and it just plays better that way. We tried it experimenting a little bit with that stuff, and it just ended up not being worth it. And we really want it to be fun for everybody, so that's just the direction that we chose to go in it. Any other questions, you guys? Just to recap, we don't have a date yet. There's a long explanation at the beginning that we talked about as to why that is, but right now it's basically out of our hands. We're doing our job of just finishing, polishing, bug squashing, everything with the game, balancing. The game is what we call feature complete, which means everything that we want to be in the game for launch is in there. So at this point, we're finding and squashing those bugs. We're polishing and optimizing the game so that it runs as smoothly as it can. And we're optimizing the balancing, so making sure that little mini games feel good and making sure the riding works and all that stuff. And then it gets passed off to all the different platforms that it will release on, and they have to all reach a consensus that the game is ready to release. Once we get that permission from everybody, then we know when it can release by, and then we can come up with a release date and then announce it to all of you guys. So that's the reason we don't have a date right now. And very similar, it's the same reason it doesn't have a price right now. That's because we don't know what's going to be in the game and what's going to be taken out of the game. We don't know what the age rating quite is going to be just yet until we know what content is in and out of the game. It's all tied together. And as soon as we know what the release date is, then we know what the pre-order date is. As soon as we know what the pre-order date is, then we know what the age rating is going to be. It's all tied into, you know, all together. So right now it's out of our hands, and it's really just waiting for the stars to align. And as soon as we have a date, we let you guys know. Until then, we just keep optimizing and fixing up the game while we wait. is there CDC health department in Ambulance Life if there's a virus in the game? So that's a great question. I don't think there's anything hazmat related. I have had the conversation with our medical experts about whether or not that's something that they think would fit in this game, because they are EMTs, paramedics, and paradoctors themselves. So they would be able to give us, a lot of them are gamers too. So a lot of them can give us that insight into whether or not it's something that we could make work. And, you know, we're bouncing back ideas. Well, what if we did it this way? What if we added that? What if we took that aspect away? And we just don't know. Right now, the game does not have anything quite like that in terms of like the WHO or the CDC being involved in some epidemic or some small breakout. But I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do something in the future. But that is something that would obviously depend on the success of the game. Stuff like that could only be added in the game if the stars aligned again and the game was outrageously successful. Yeah, wild stuff was being thrown around for sure. There's a lot of stuff. Once the game comes out and we know what's going to be in the game and what will never be in the game, we'll be able to talk about all the stuff that got, you know, cut and is on the cutting room floor that never quite made it. Something that might be, you know, a possibility for a game in itself later, like maybe a pandemic simulator is something that we might do down the road. Who knows? But it's also a sore subject because like COVID hasn't gone away. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that would actually hurt us trying to make a game like that. There's so many politics and business decisions that go into stuff like that. I couldn't possibly make that decision. Like in the UK, what will happen a lot is they'll have a single crew paramedic that has a little bit more training and they get the patient stable when the ambulance arrives. Oh yeah. I think Germany has that too. They have like paradoctors that it's a doctor who's like always on call. They can arrive to a scene if needed rather than bringing somebody to a hospital. You have the option of having somebody on the road. I think Germany has that too, Undot. Is that correct? I thought it was Germany. Can I have longer hairs for my female character or do I need to stay short hair variants? So there are, I believe, 4 female paramedics to choose from and 4 male paramedics to choose from. And they all have different hairstyles. There's not any customizability, at least not right now, but it's very similar to Police Simulator where you would pick somebody you identify with the most and then use that character throughout their whole career progression. A sort of mobile doctor. Yeah, that makes sense, Cassiopeia. That's what I thought. We all get to offer our inputs, but quite fine not being part of the decision process. True. As somebody who's not a part of those high-level decisions, I'm fine with letting the high-level people make those decisions. And also, what's the limit to your medical procedures, such as like doing drilling or doing IV to the bone? So it's not that gruesome. There's a lot of variability. It's mostly like topical. It's mostly like administering medications. It's bandages. It's IV solutions. It's insulin or glucose. It's essentially really pretty basic stuff because again, you're not really dealing with like major traumatic events where like you're not using the jaws of life to get somebody out of a vehicle kind of a thing. You're treating based on environmental hazards. Maybe they did get hit by a car, but you can use a neck brace. You're not going to be like resetting a spine or anything like that, or resetting bones and splints, anything like that. No amputations scoped out. Yeah, that's next level stuff. Yeah. I mean, there's also part of it too is if that stuff did get added, it probably would have added another 6 to 12 months of development. And so it was decided years ago, whenever the contract was signed, that the game would come out around X time. And it would have X number of milestones, and each milestone had to have X number of features built into the game. So there's a lot that we would like to do, and even Nacon would like to do, but it just didn't make sense for the time that we broke it out to. So that's why like DLC happens after games. So that's like, for example, like Highway Patrol was something we always wanted to have in Police Simulator, but we didn't really have the time to add it in when we were still developing the game. So that was a full-blown DLC where it introduced an entire interconnected interstate system where players can pick shifts just for the highways and do speed traps or taking care of accidents or speeders or drunk drivers, all that stuff. Same stuff as in the city, but on a broader scale on a 4-lane highway. So similar. features, release date, budget. Yeah, it's a very delicate dance. It's all very high level business decisions. Is there a symptom for diabetes in the game? There absolutely is. You have a glucose monitor. People can get diabetes or have diabetes, and you have to treat accordingly. Sometimes they'll tell you they have it. Sometimes they will not. So sometimes you just have to check their blood sugar level and see if they need glucose or they need insulin to help stabilize their blood sugar level. But then maybe that now gives them a panic attack, and now you might have to give them ketamine to slow them down from the panic attack. But now that means their heart rate is rising. Not much you can do for a high heart rate except maybe try and talk them down a bit and just transport to the hospital. So everything is interconnected, and sometimes in not the best ways. That's as far as I can get into that without actually seeing it. Do I need, or can I call some sort of police if I need their assistance? So the way we built the game, there isn't really a need for that. You are often the first responder in every single instance, but you'll never come across like a combative situation where somebody's fighting you or somebody tries to attack you, any sort of things like that. No like active domestic abuse situations that are happening. It's essentially your job is to get to the scene you're called to 911 for, respond by investigating what's going on with your patient and the environment around them, treating them after diagnoses, and then stabilizing them long enough to get them to the hospital. That's the basic core loop right now. And then depending on how long your shift is, jump right back into the bus and go find another patient. I was going to add, will you do a highway for ambulance sim? And if needed, could you call air ambulance? Air ambulance is something that we've gotten a couple of questions for. That I don't know if was ever even considered, just because we really wanted to take advantage of the biome of San Francisco. So dealing with the hills, the traffic, the environment, the buildings, all of that was on purpose so that you had to drive around those obstacles. Air ambulance kind of avoids all of that. Think about it like flying mounts in World of Warcraft. That essentially ruined the game for a lot of people because you no longer had to navigate a lot of the troubles or angry mobs on the ground. You could just skip over everything. And it just turned what normally was the actual game playing experience into making everything else feel like a chore that you no longer have that flying mount, if that makes sense. So I don't know if it's something we will add to the game, but it's not out of the question. And again, not my decision. But if the game comes out and you think that that would be a good addition to, I didn't mean fly up, but to call it in. I mean, maybe, I don't know. You mean like medevac somebody out? I mean, I don't know. Right now, the only thing that happens is you pick one patient to take with you and treat them, stabilize them in your bus while you transport them to the hospital. Everyone else gets left behind because theoretically other ambulances are coming to pick those people up. So you usually don't like oversee them all being picked up and then you take yours. You see yours, you take yours, and you go, kind of a thing, because everything is like time sensitive and emergency. So I don't know is the answer to your question, Bradley. Technically possible, at least art wise. Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. I guess it just depends on how expensive it would be to add that to the game, because you have to keep in mind too, like everything that's added to the game, even if it's like, you know, adding a new symptom or a new tool, that has to be balanced and interactable with the other tools. If you add a new medication, other medications have to have some sort of effect when using those two together. So all of that has to get added in. So then you're looking at like X number of man hours, X number of people working on that thing, and X amount of time to have it fully implemented and tested and playable inside the game. That all costs an enormous amount of money. And we're talking about like money you can't even fathom. So really that depends on the success of the game. What we can do after release really depends on how much money the game is making. If it's extremely successful, hell yeah, let's take a list of all the stuff that the community is looking to add to the game, see what makes sense, and see what we can add. If it's not doing well or just barely meets expectations, there's probably not a whole lot more we can do besides just fixing bugs and making sure that like small things are added like skins or cosmetics. So it really, really, really depends on what Aesir and Nacon think the game is doing or how well it's performing after release. But definitely never be shy about giving us those ideas, suggestions, and bugs, because we need to know, and we keep a record of all of it anyway. We're always listening, we're always watching, so that if the chance comes out that we can action on something, we have a list that we can refer to and go, you know, like 20% of the community really wants medevac. Is that something we can add to the game? So I'll never say never, but there's no way to know until the game comes out. You know what I mean? Lord of the Rings, just not possible. As Troy said, not planned for air. Wow, tricky. Yeah. The world has to be ready to be looked at from above. Correct. Trying our best to deliver a great game. You provide the sales, anything can be expanded in. 1000%. That's it's just money at that point. It's literally just a numbers game. If the game is selling like hotcakes, then that gives us so much more power in what we can actually do in the game. Absolutely. What will you do if a patient passes away, or will the mission just end? That's a great question. So as a paramedic, you are not legally allowed to declare somebody as deceased. That's a doctor's responsibility. So what you will still do is, even if the patient has passed away and you cannot revive them, everything you've done everything that you can to bring them back, you can't. You still have to transport them to the hospital, and then the hospital will do what they can after you leave. They'll presumably do everything they can to revive the patient. If they can't, then a doctor will declare that person dead at a certain date and time. So that's essentially it. Like, basically is, I've been told by paramedics and EMTs, the only time you can make that determination is if the head is no longer attached to the body, because there is nothing you can do. There is no medical intervention that can fix that, period. That's done. There's no coming back from that. So that is like the only exception. If the head is not connected to the body anymore, then you can make that determination, but you still have to transport it. Do my characters talk in some way or completely silent? That is actually a good question. I don't know. So like in Police Simulator, your character did have canned responses, a selection of, affirmations or, questions. They would ask it in different ways because that was all recorded. Every NPC is voice lined. I don't know about paramedics. Undot, do you have any information on that? I don't remember. Another question is, do I understand right? You can only resecure one person in your ambulance, right? The others can only be treated and let them there. Yes. The theory behind it is similar to, for example, in Police Simulator, you can arrest multiple people for whatever offense that they're arrestable for, and then you call the police, the paddy wagon, for backup, and then they come and pick up each person that you arrested, but you can put one in your vehicle and take them with you. Depending on the vehicle, you can fit like 4. Yeah, the idea is that once you do your job, you treat them as best you can on site, and then you pick up presumably like the worst patient to treat, stabilize, and then transport to the hospital. And then the idea is that everyone else is taken care of. You can see here in this, let's take the banner down again. In this final call out section scene, there were 2 patients at this particular scene that this person was called to. Henry Silva was not as critical condition as Aesir Lombardi was. So Henry was simply treated, I think maybe with a bandage. I don't even remember. I'd have to go back. They were treated on site and then left to be picked up by somebody else. That was an A rating. That's about as much as you could have done. There may have been like maybe a neck brace or something would have gotten them an S, not sure. But Azel had a lot more issues going on, which included the actual transport and admission to the hospital. So there were some things they could have done better, which is why it was a B rating. But the B and the A combined, also joining with the difficulty score, gave them a total score of 947, which in this instance was a B rating for both patients. So they treated Henry Silva, but they transported Azel. Can you customize your ambulance with different liveries in your uniform? I know that there has to be. I've only seen the basic one. But as far as ambulances, yes. And change the sirens. There's going to be a lot more information on that later, because even in America, there are varying sirens. Sometimes there's sirens for being on the highway. Sometimes there's sirens for being only in the cities. We'll talk a little bit more about that once we have more details, but I don't have all the info yet. Just stack the patients on top of each other like pancakes, no problem. And then you can transfer all of them. True. There's actually room on the roof too. Just saying. In fact, if you stack a bunch of them in the actual bus itself, but then you have the gurney tied to the bumper, that's another person in the back you can add on. So, I mean, you can add quite a few people if you really wanted to, Bastille. There are different brandings in sirens. Well, there you go. And like I said, we'll definitely have more details on that later. I think I covered everything, right? What will happen if I see Troy's head in the game? You won't. I have not been. They don't have me filmed because we have to do like a full 360 picture of somebody's head to add to the game. Diabetes. Gonna add the highway. I was gonna add. Will you do the highway? I forgot to finish that half of your question, Bradley. So there is a highway system in the game by default, but you only access it by unlocking other districts because that's how they're connected to each other. Because if you think of San Francisco, everything's in the bay, so you have like bridges and ferries to get around to different areas. So we kind of tried to emulate that as best we could and made it as difficult as possible to get between the districts on purpose. No, I'm gonna stick one right in the hood of the ambulance, first person view. Good God, Bastille. Yeah, Undot, I don't know if you know about the localization side of it. If your actual paramedic has the option of speaking, I feel like they must. Yeah, and like all the builds that I've played were pretty early on, so like the voiceover wasn't added even for the NPCs at a certain point. You zone stuff like that out. Yeah, you just tune it out. One time I almost got hit by an ambulance. I was just joking about that in Discord. It's really not funny, but a woman was hit by an ambulance and it was a hit and run. And it's like, if you're going to get hit by anybody, it should be an ambulance, but they didn't treat her. And then when she took the ambulance to court, the jury said, yes, absolutely. This is a hit and run unequivocally. And the judge said, I agree, but I'm throwing the case out. Everyone was like, what? It was crazy. So I was like, that, I mean, I have a legal precedent. I can run over as many patients as I want now. That's what that means. With the sirens on. They must have been in a hurry, Smoker. They must have been in a hurry. Okay. I think that's it, guys. I think we hit, what are we running at? What's our runtime? 2.5 hours. Hey, I guess we're making up for lost time. I was gone for like 4 weeks. So that makes sense. You start your shift at like your headquarters, like your paramedic headquarters, and it's right outside. It's similar to Police Simulator, but you're not inside the building. You're just like right outside in the parking lot where you can hop in your bus and answer your first call. But that's it, guys. Like I said, this VOD will be live on YouTube and Twitch maybe later today, but definitely tomorrow morning. It'll go live tomorrow morning. It would have been nice if Nikon did some kind of a collector's edition, like some physical statue of some ambulance based in the game. Yes and no. That stuff's really expensive to do. I like that stuff too. Like, I still remember when like Black Ops 2, you could get the RC car. And then I think Modern Warfare 3 had the night vision goggles. Like Baldur's Gate 3 had their beautiful statue. Like there's always some really cool stuff that comes along with collector's editions. But at the same time, Nikon doesn't do a whole lot of physical stuff, aside from, of course, their peripheral division where they do like controllers and fighting sticks and stuff. They also don't do like a lot of in-person events because that stuff's really expensive. It's way more expensive to do like a PAX East or an E3 than it is to, for example, a Steam Next Fest or a Halloween sale on Steam. That stuff is like significantly higher impact, but lower cost. Whereas in-person stuff is like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just putting a 30-second trailer at Summer's Game Fest is like $500,000. It's like $500,000. It's crazy. It's like nuts. It's like so nuts. I know it's not that much info, but is it realistic this game comes out this year? I mean, that's been our goal. Our goal has been the end of this year, but there's so many different factors because it's kind of out of our control right now. And you have to keep in mind that in most of Europe, December is like 2 or 3 weeks. Studios are closed for December time because they take really long vacations at the end of the year. So even if it was going to release, it probably isn't going to be as late as December. So it's either the end of this year or early next year. It happens when it happens. We just don't have the information. Like I said, it's pretty much out of our control. It's all up to the platforms to reach a consensus about what they think the best option is going to be for the game. And then we'll play it by ear. We'll see when we know. Basically, I'm just going to keep saying it's done when it's done. That's the best I can give you because we're still fixing up some of the stuff while we're waiting to hear back from the certifications and all that good stuff. But if you're very welcome, Cassiopeia. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by today. I know people checked out once they got the answers they wanted, but this VOD is, I think, going to be a really important one. So you want to follow us here and turn on notifications. We go live every single Friday For me, Pacific time, it's noon. For Central European time, it's about 9 p.m. And then for Eastern United States, it's around 3 p.m. So it's the same time every single week with some exceptions. If, something happens and I have to move it to Saturday or just cancel it for that week because I was sick, whatever have you. But other than that, you can follow all of our socials at Aesir Interactive with no E, because Twitter is not long enough to fit the E. So we took it off so that it's consistent across every platform. But also Ambulance Life in particular is the Ambulance Sim. And definitely follow our Discord. I mean, if you don't do anything else, our Discord is definitely the place to hang out. Oh, it already said it. It's not going to let me do the command because it just said it. But yeah, join the Discord. Our Discord is going to be everything. It's every single game that we are making or have made in the past. It is all of our announcements. Anything that gets announced gets put into Discord first, sometimes by as much as half a day. So if you want to be the first to hear any news about any of the favorite games that we make, that's the place to go. And as anyone can tell you, Undad and I are pretty damn active in there. I have it notify my phone, so I answer pretty quickly when I can. Obviously, with the difference in time zones, I can't always be there, but I answer when I can. Yeah. That's true. Dude, Undad does love his Guinness. That's a fact. Is an ambulance a bus? It's, some people call it a bus. In America, anyway, they call it a bus. Some call it a van. It just depends. I'm just on off work. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, everybody. I don't think there's anybody to raid. Let me take a quick peek. It would probably only be Police Simulator at this stage, but let me see if anyone is live. Oh, somebody tagged the wrong Police Simulator when they put in the game. Patrol officers. There's a couple people, but most of them are not in English. So I'm not going to take the chance. I don't want to raid somebody who's like really toxic. I don't want to take the chance until I know for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for stopping by. I will see you next week at the very least. Bye.